Good evening and welcome to Thursday Night Empowerment Series. We welcome you here tonight and I am super excited to be your host. My name is Kimberly Simmons and I am here to introduce to you guys, or they're going to introduce themselves, this great board of educators from elementary through adult. Each one will come on and introduce themselves. Just tell us a little bit about yourselves, guys, where you maybe, what grade level, what district you're in. Just share a little bit to our audience about you before we begin our panel discussion. It doesn't matter where we start. We can start with Angela Stubbs. She's first under me on this picture, so I'm going to go that route.
Good evening. I'm Angela Stubbs. I am a special education teacher of about 20 years. So I specifically work with students with disabilities. And I am currently a teacher in the Pittsburgh Public School District. And I work at a school that services students from 6th grade to 12th grade. And we are actually the Science and Technology Academy of the district.
Welcome, Angela. Thank you so much. And next we're going to have Miss Yvette Spratling.
Hello, good evening, everyone. I am Yvette Spratling, and I am an instructional coach. And what that means is that I support teachers in instructional strategies and supporting their teaching techniques to improve student achievement. And I'm glad to be here this evening.
Thank you so much, Yvette. Next up, we're going to go with LaShia Foster.
Hello, I am LaShia Foster, and I teach pre-K in Gifford County Schools. I've been teaching for 15 years, and I'm actually in a public school, and I teach here at Sedalia Elementary for Gifford County.
Thank you so much, LaShia. Next up, we have Natalia Moore.
Hi, everyone. I am Natalia, and I teach high school English, all grades 9 through 12. I currently teach at T.W. Andrews High School in High Point, and I also run a girls mentoring program at the school, and I'm really excited about this new school year.
Awesome, Natalia. Thank you. And last and definitely not least, our man educator that's holding down the fort for all the Black male educators around the globe. We thank you so much, Mr. Jonathan White.
All right, thank you, and good evening to everyone. I'm Jonathan White, a lecturer in U.S. and African American Studies at Penn State, Greater Allegheny in McKeesport, also a doctoral candidate at the University of Pittsburgh. Glad to be here.
Thank you so much. We have a plethora of knowledge for you this evening. I'm so excited about what's about to take place. We have been the topic of discussion since March. Well, now the world will get to hear from us. But before we begin, I want to open up with a word of prayer. With all hearts and minds clear, Father, in Jesus' name, we thank you for allowing us as educators to come together to share our knowledge, to share our understanding, to even share our questions and concerns. We thank you for allowing this platform to be available to us, that we can enlighten others about the educational process in these times of COVID-19. We thank you for our leader, Bishop W.L. Washington, over the Powerhouse of Deliverance Churches, and we give you glory and honor of everything that you're doing in our lives, God. We thank you in advance. We thank you for this platform. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So I was so stoked when I was asked to moderate this evening, because as educators, we'll get with our peers and we'll have our sidebar conversations on what we think are the pros and the cons. And now we're able to come together to share from all gamuts of the educational process. So one question that I wanted to throw out to our panel is, what model of instruction did your district end up deciding upon? Because that was the issue. That was the foremost question for months. Well, are y'all going back, or are you going to be in the classroom, or are you doing some kind of hybrid method? So share out, and everybody please feel free to jump in as you see fit.
Our district, the Pittsburgh Public School District, originally had some plans on offering for students to have the option and the choice to go online full-time, or have the option to choose a hybrid model where they would be going into the school as well as being taught online as well, a couple days a week. That has since changed. As of right now, it has been decided that the first 9 weeks will be taught virtually online for Pittsburgh Public Schools.
All right, all right. Can I get another school district? We've got Pittsburgh represented.
I'll say, I know our district, Guilford County Schools, also originally had that hybrid model tossed around, and we ended up going with 9 weeks virtual as well. Hallelujah. And so the plan is to revisit that in October and to decide whether or not we will continue virtually or try to do face-to-face instruction.
Thank you, Natalia. Is there any district that's doing anything else? I know we have a lot of Guilford County here, so I know what Guilford County is doing. And we've had Angela to share out with Pittsburgh. Jonathan, are you guys doing virtual as well, or hybrid, or what method are you all using?
Well, actually, they've given us a variety of choices. For the most part, it's either in class, which is preferable, but it really depends on how many students you have. Like, for instance, my classes are getting close to 30 now, which is hard to social distance. So one of the options is to have half of the class come during the class period while the other half stays at home and does Zoom, right? So you get that whole class. It's just that some of them are with you in class and others are on Zoom, or you can do it all the way on Zoom remotely. But some of the science labs, for instance, you can't get around. They have to come. You just have to find a way to social distance. So They're trying to make sure that the instructors are comfortable.
That's awesome. That it's good to hear that they're giving you guys that flexibility to be able to choose what's going to work best with you. So the kids that, if you were going to do in classroom, would they be required to wear masks in the classroom if you chose to go with that option?
Right. At Penn State, it's pretty much a requirement. I mean, hopefully we can literally tell a student that, they have to leave or have a mask, but they have told us to have some extra masks. Our campus is relatively small, so, hopefully, we'll be able to make sure everyone is prepared.
Sounds good. Sounds good. I know that when it was being tossed about here in Guilford, they were telling us to have masks on deck in case kids forgot masks, that kind of thing. So I think most of the districts are trying to cover all bases with the students' livelihoods at best, as their best interest of what will happen. With our elementary and middle school children, we know that they learn best with social interaction. How are we going to make that happen, being that for the bulk of our kids, we're virtual? So those that are doing elementary school, middle school, even high school, because everybody's attention span is different and getting them to interact and be involved in instruction is going to vary. So how are we as educators going to try and promote that so that we can keep our students interacting in the academics, but also being able to interact with their peers?
Well, that's a great question. Right now, though, for what we don't know, it's going to be very challenging. one of the things is, at least in the hybrid model for elementary, if they're actually in the classroom, they can actually see their peers. So that, is a layer of the interaction. Now, of course, they will have to be social distancing, but I think sometimes when we think about interaction, that people actually have to touch, just to see your peers and to know that they're there. I think for the younger students, for elementary, that is, that could be at least one comfort. But outside of that, they're not accustomed to not being able to, interact physically or to work together and to do collaboration, which is what they're accustomed to. So it'll be a great challenge. And I'm not sure, how we'll handle it. I mean, nobody really has seen it before. We can only imagine based on what the parameters that they've given us. So it's possible, but it's going to be a challenge, especially for the younger you go, where, right. Kindergarten, and I'm sure that LaShaya can talk about even pre-K. I mean, that is their curriculum. When they're young, they are taught and you're training them how to socially interact. So it'll be quite a challenge. But I know kids, just want to see their peers. And, they've had the Zoom, but just to be in their presence, I think might, kind of help a little bit.
LaShaya, would you like to chime in on the younger ones?
Actually, I honestly told my parents last year, a lot of it, because I don't promote them being on the computer a lot. I actually told them playing games with them. I promoted them playing games with them, sitting down, playing a board game with them, playing outside with them. I promoted that more so than being on the computer. Yes, I want them to see me reading a book with them, but you actually reading a book to your child is more beneficial than them looking at something on a computer. You playing a game, you taking turns, is teaching them how to take turns, because when you're reading and doing small group, they have to know how to take turns. It's my turn to read. It's my turn to go next. They got to learn how to wait their turn. They got to learn how to lose. There's a lot of things like that we don't think about. When you're playing a game, you're naturally teaching them things. So a lot of things that we don't think about in everyday life that you do that when you're playing games. So I teach them, play a game with them, sit down as a family, do that, have the younger or the older sibling play those games with them, things that we don't think about, do it in natural play. That's teaching them things, Candyland, do Candyland, you're doing math, colors, all of those are things that they need to do. You think about it, it's a game. They don't know that they're learning, but it's, an activity. And you can play Candyland, Candyland can go on for hours. Make sure, you get that the little one with the little, was it the little cupcake? You're going back to the beginning. So, it can go on and on. So, playing games like that, Trouble, that's, counting, subtraction, adding, all games like that. With that, especially if they have older siblings that can help them,
right?
All of that, things like that, you can do that, and it's helping the older ones that, oh wait, you didn't add that right, you skip, go back and help them, and that's helping the older ones that maybe, oh wait, that's not right, they missed something. So little things like that, where we think it has to be a sheet of paper, it doesn't have to be a sheet of paper. Or if they're getting the snack, go count out 10 grapes. That's adding. That's little things like that. You can make that a math activity.
Awesome. That's great, LaShaya. I sure didn't think about some of those things. I guess you just get older and you grow away from it, huh? I'm about to tell my age on this camera. Not at all.
But even with laundry, having them sorting colors, doing things like that. We don't think about that, but all of that is little stuff that we can do. You don't have to make it a thing where you gotta sit there and, we gotta sit down and write. just think about everyday stuff. How can I turn it into a math activity? How can I turn it into a literacy activity? Oh, let's make a chart or make a get all the letters and then just cut out the cereal. You like Apple Jacks. Let's put it under the letter A. Let's write everybody's name under in the family and put everybody's name under a different letter. Then they start recognizing people's name in the family. Little stuff like that, different things like that. So make it meaningful.
Awesome. Natalia, how are we going to keep the high school kids engaged? Because they have every distraction in the world to keep them unengaged. How can we keep them engaged?
Absolutely. And because they are a little bit older, I just think more about the collegiate level. And so keeping them interactive for me would involve placing my kids in groups for maybe a project or an assignment, and then they can FaceTime or text one another. High schoolers will find a way, and they like to, use each other's work anyway. So I think I talked about that earlier actually with a colleague, really break my kids up into small groups and assign different projects and let them work together and figure out how they're going to get it done. And they can, whether they want to Zoom, FaceTime, text, even if they want to get together face to face, if that's possible for them, that's fine. But they are a little more independent and have a lot more autonomy to work together.
That's great. Is there anyone else that would like to share out about keeping the kids more collaborative? I know, as Natalia and some of the others have stated, I plan on incorporating, I'm middle school, I did not say that earlier. And in the classes that we teach, we're going to make sure, I'm coaching teachers to make sure that collaboration happens, because middle schoolers love their friends and they need to talk to them, they need to be with them, they need to interact with them. And with that being the case, projects, collaboration, let's chat about this, not just about what happened over the weekend, but let's incorporate that in, or something into the lesson that would keep them more engaged and definitely collaborative. I want to roll back to you have something else?
I just would like to add, though, that Guilford County Schools did purchase a program called Nearpod. I'm not sure if anyone is familiar, but I created a couple of lessons in Nearpod, and those are actually really, really interactive, whether you just post the link or if you want to do it live. But you can ask questions. They can post their comments to kind of like a board where the whole class can see and respond to one another. And I just thought that was a really cool extra added layer of interaction, so that you're not just reading, okay, I got to do this, and then you do an assignment, but as you go along in the lesson, you can reply and respond to one another, and they can see each other's responses, etc. And so Nearpod is really cool if anyone is in GCS or not, but I know it's free for Guilford County school teachers.
And just to segue on that, before on last year when we were in virtual, I stumbled across Nearpod. So they have some free lessons as well as what's purchased. So if you're not in GCS, it'll still work for you because they definitely have free lessons that are available. And it is great because, like Natalia just said, it has all sorts of interactive moments throughout the lesson wherein they're engaged to get to the next moment. So yes, Nearpod is awesome. It's an awesome platform.
I think that that's really going to be the key with the virtual learning and the distance online learning, is just tapping into all the resources that might be available online that help engage students. There are so many websites out there now and so many online programming that incorporate so many different activities where there can be a lot of collaboration and engagement with students. So just really kind of exploring what is out there that teachers and students can use for resources is going to definitely be so very key with the virtual learning.
Absolutely, absolutely. And another thing is that so many companies are offering they realize that everybody is struggling to make sure that academics are successful. So
Right.
in knowing that numbers of companies have given free resources or free tutorials or maybe not free, but discounted methods of getting this information across, because the ultimate goal is the success of our kids.
Right.
And everybody's on board around the globe trying to make sure that that happens. We do have a question from our viewers. They wanted to know, how is the panel going to address the scholars' social emotional issues due to Black Lives Matter issues? Due to Black Lives Matter, how are we going to address social emotional learning in reference to the Black Lives Matters issues? Anybody want to jump on that? I see Jonathan's unmuted.
Well, I think first of all, before we address it with them, we have to wrestle with it ourselves. And for me, part of the kind of rally, vigil, protest on campus, and they asked some of the faculty to be involved. And in terms of my young men, one of the things we do for the mentoring program, I'm a co-founder of our program at Penn State, and we encourage community service and leadership in these young men as freshmen, so that they understand that this is part of what you do as a scholar, right? You serve others, you stay in tune with your community. But I think another thing would be for us as faculty and as teachers to be responsive. I think one of the things that in March, before we went on spring break, right before Penn State shut down, one of my students at the end of a Zoom session asked me, "Are we all going to die?" Right. This is when we didn't really know what COVID was doing to us. And so here I am. I think I'd done a great lesson, and you feel like you're giving them the concepts, and she was worried about a question of our human existence, and I really didn't have the answer there. And so for me, as a man of God, I've been praying for her all of this summer and asking for ways that I can help take what I do in the classroom and give it to them in such a way it will empower them, right, and encourage them in these very difficult times.
Yes. Anyone else? Anyone else want to chime in on that? Angela, you're unmuted. Or Yvette?
Oh, yes. I know specifically the Pittsburgh School District has been intentional about doing some work around the social and emotional learning when it comes to our students within the district. And I think Professor Jonathan, he definitely made a good point about wrestling with those ideas and those concepts yourself. And our district has definitely put in work to have some of those courageous conversations around race and around the issues and around things that can be present within the systematic racism within the system and different things of that nature. So we have definitely been doing some work around, addressing those issues and asking people to be transparent about their feelings and their biases, and being open to working on those biases by first being honest and realizing that you have those biases, and what is it that we can do to help our students, because it's important that not only that we support them and empower them, but we need to do that work for our students to believe that they can do better, that they can achieve, and that they can be successful, and that we are able to close this achievement gap that's happening specifically with our students.
Absolutely. Yvette, did you want to add on something?
So I appreciate the words and the sharing out, and Guilford County as well has put a lot of work into the social and emotional learning. I know when we first went out in March, for teachers in particular, they had webinars weekly just to kind of check in and to give strategies for teachers, in day to day, and like how they were doing and what strategies and self-care You know, people were forced home and there was no planning. You had teachers and families who, you know, were just scrambling and trying to make it work, and it really made such a disruption. And so teachers who were expected to deliver this high quality instruction really didn't have, you know, the capacity or the techniques at the time. And so the district had, you know, weekly webinars from our department, our social emotional learning department, and just were there for teachers like every week. And it was a voluntary, it was voluntary, but more and more you could see the participation once people got the word out that there was just something for us to just kind of just, you know, woosah and get strategies on how we're going to make this work. And you as a teacher, you know, balancing everything. So I thought it was really, you know, intentional, and I'm grateful because I even joined, you know, because I wanted to have some additional strategies to support my teachers.
Absolutely.
In the midst of everything that was going on. So in turn, for those teachers, those nuggets that they grab for themselves, that they'll also in turn, you know, think about that when they're instructing remotely, that they're going to have a time set intentionally to really do some social emotional activities. I'm not really sure about, you know, of course, the issues that we've dealt with in our society, and as those things come up. But I think it was pertinent for teachers to kind of just find out where they were on the spectrum first, and then to be able to then decide, okay, so if this is something that's good, that's going to help me to at least help me kind of grapple with things, and then as students as well, you know, be able to share that. But I think there's still work to do, and there's still support, you know, for teachers on the continuation as we go into remote learning again at the very beginning of the school year. So that's going to be a key factor to continue that work so that we can continue to support teachers, support families, and then to support students. So the social emotional learning and the need for it is going to be great.
I agree. The social emotional learning sect of Guilford County, they have done an awesome job. I was in a session today with diversity and equity, and just how our children of color are suspended more, be it male or female, than their other counterparts, and how we tend to blow over things as kids as, oh, that's cute. But then later on in life, it becomes disrespectful. So I believe we as a people have to set that ground road initially to say, hey, this is not the way we conduct ourselves with adults, regardless to whether it's cute as a kid or not, because that cute as a kid turns into suspension or stereotyping that kid later, where that's a disrespectful child, or she's always talking back, or he's sagging and whatever the stereotype that goes with the image. It can turn negative when at one time it was cute. And I thought they showed a cute little video clip of a little girl. She was no more than about 3 or 4. Her articulation was immaculate because you could tell she was around adults all the time. Her mannerism was adultish. So she ended up going back and forth with this teacher and ended up being in timeout. And she was like, well, I don't care about being in timeout. Timeout is like jail. So how is a child of 3 or 4 making the connection of that confinement? But it's because of that basis that's being allowed and never corrected early on that gets them to that point of, well, Black Lives Matter. It matters. We all have to work together to make sure it matters all along, not just at the point of no return, or I'm dead, or I'm in jail, or whatever the end outcome usually is. So I definitely agree that Guilford County has done an excellent job in trying to open up everyone's eyes, and those biases, you have to be real to yourself. Teachers have to be real to say, hey, I didn't think about it that way. That's right. I can't condone whatever, or I can't argue back with a kid because you don't know how much of that they're getting at home. Natalia, I see you. I'm on my soapbox, so I'm a hush. Natalia, I see you're unmuted.
Yeah, I was just going to say that for me as an educator, I have made the decision to realize, like, I work in an oppressive system, and I have, you know, participated in that system we call education in America, and it's an oppressive system, right? And so regardless of whether my district or even my school is doing something, I've made the conscious decision that in my classroom, what I can control, I am going to reflect the times, reflect, you know, what's going on in society through the content that I teach, the material that I bring in. And so I just want to remind us as educators, we do have the control over what we give to our students every day. And I think it was Nina Simone who said, as an artist, her duty or her job is to reflect the times. And so that's how I look at my job as an educator. Like, my duty is to reflect what's going on in society. And I think Mr. Jonathan said this, and it's to give you this information to empower you to go out into society, to do whatever you deem necessary as far as making change.
Absolutely. That's a great mantra, Natalia. Anyone else want to add on to that?
I did. For the young ones for pre-K, we have a set curriculum for social emotional. It's more of a foundational kind of like to help them identify their emotions. Because a lot of times that's the problem. They don't know how to identify that I'm upset, I'm angry, or how to express it the right way. And that's how they get in trouble. You know, a lot of times they don't know to say that I'm upset, I'm mad. And so they act out. So with our younger ones, that's a lot of what we do with, it's called Second Step. So we have a whole thing of how to make friends, how to be friendly, you know, how to share, how to, those basic foundation that we need to set before they get to kindergarten. So right. That's what we teach in pre-K, a lot of the basic stuff that they need. So not necessarily, you know, I'm not really going into depth about, you know, Black Lives Matter or a lot of the different things, but I'm trying to teach them the basic stuff. Like, you can be friends with someone that does not look like you, or somebody that, you know, doesn't live in the same type of house you do. But I'm not going into details because they're not really going to understand. Like, I had a parent one year that said, and she was honest with me. She said, my daughter, she's like, I'm going to ask you, I hope you're not offended. She was like, but my daughter, another parent came to me because her daughter said, and she was Hispanic, and she said, my daughter said, that's my brown friend. I said, they're at an age, she's 4. She was like, she's talking about her skin color. She's not trying to be, you know. I said, all you can do is just say, hey, yes, her skin is brown. She's African American, or she's Black. I said, I wasn't offended by that. I said, that parent shouldn't have been offended because that's what she sees as her skin is brown. I said, but that's someone trying to take it where they need to go. I said, she's 4, her skin is brown. I said, and she didn't say it in a mean way. I said, because she went and hugged the girl and said, hey, that's my brown friend. I said, so some people take it to the extreme. I said, but that's where you as a parent can say, yes, that is your brown friend. She's African American, you know, you're Hispanic. So, you know, that's your, you know, that's considered your race, you know, your skin's not, you know, you can go in more detail as a parent. I said, but that's not my job. And she might not be able to understand it yet. Give it a couple of years. I said, but that's the world we live in now, where right. You have some people that take it to the full extreme.
Absolutely.
You can't play with them because of their skin. Right. But I knew that parent, and that parent's very friendly. So I knew where she was coming from when she said that. Mm-hmm. But I mean, they're dealing with this at 4. So, you know, you got to teach them. It's when I say it was that crazy, I was like, it's not. I knew where you were coming from. I said, no, it's not. But that's the world we live in now, where right. I'm telling her, no, it's fine. I said, no, I wouldn't have been offended if your child came up to me and I had a daughter and she said, that's my brown friend. I was like, that's her friend. That's her friend. But but some people are like that.
Right.
But you got to look at the age of the child and how that child interacted. If she would have pushed the girl and said, that's different, but
Yeah.
she was smiling and really happy to see her. So.
Right. Thank you, LaShia. We do want to encourage our listening audience to definitely send in your questions and comments. We do have a question panel. It says, can anyone explain the difference with the GCS e-learning academy versus doing online with your child's original school?
Yes, I can kind of help to clarify. So e-learning, the virtual e-learning academy was a idea, and it was in the plans that GCS wanted to offer some alternative schooling. This was before COVID even happened. So they had been actually trying a year or so ago, and they got denied. So it just so happened that this year they actually got approved. And so, and it just happened to happen while we were planning on what our reopening would look like. So the e-learning virtual academy basically is going to be all year virtual. Now, there is expectations as given by the GCS board, the expectation is that there's going to be live instruction at least once or twice a day throughout the week. And then literally they'll have all of their stuff is online. They will not be at school at all, not at any time. When you're talking about the remote learning, that's why it's called remote learning, because the traditional calendar, students who would have been returning back to their schools, but of course right now we're going to be 9 weeks on remote learning, they will receive instruction as well. It may be live, it may not be live, it might have recorded lessons, and the duration, of course, is supposed to be for the 9 weeks, which has Natalia has shared, and then they will reevaluate in October. So students who sign up for the e-learning academy, though, they will actually be unenrolled from their current school and then be registered for the e-learning virtual. So with that being said, I know that our district, Guilford County Schools, they are very liberal, that parents and families do have some choices as long as they go and register their child and they have like a temporary homeschool that they can attend for whatever reasons that they feel that they need to. But it will unenroll them from your homeschool, and with e-learning as well, if by chance there are extenuating circumstances that a family no longer can do the e-learning academy, it would be looked at case by case. The expectation is if you agree that you're going to do online e-learning academy, you are saying that you are doing it for the duration of the school year 2021. So that's kind of the difference. And they're still accepting registration for the online e-learning academy up through September the 15th. So, families have time to kind of make arrangements or to see if that's going to work for their child or their children. And right now, there is no other type of childcare, because I know that with teachers who have children, they are only going to be remote up until October, and then we see from there. So there's a lot of, families just kind of taking the information, trying to decide what they want to do, what's going to be best for their child. And this is something new. So this is a new school that has been added to Gifford County. It's not a brick and mortar school, but these are new schools. And I say schools because it is divided between a K2 school and then the 6-8. Is that correct?
I believe it's K K5.
K5.
And then 6 through 12. So it's a
Right.
Primary and then a secondary school, if I remember correctly.
That is correct. And so that I know that right now we don't have any additional information, but they're still in the process of confirming those families who've already registered. And so those confirmations are coming in. My son, we have decided that he is going to participate in the virtual e-learning school this school year.
Okay.
But they're sending those confirmations out now. So they're still working with numbers of students, families, so that when remote learning starts for students who remain in their home schools, they'll know what type of staffing. So that's the reason why they're not going to allow families to just kind of flip flop. So you have to really just take into consideration all the factors if it's something that works for your family.
Thank you, Yvette. We did have a comment from Facebook that said that GCS is releasing SEL resource guides for teachers, staff, and parents that will be helpful, and it has activities that you can work on with your kids remotely. So we thank you for that information from Facebook. I want to roll back to the conversation when LaShaya was sharing about some of the things that you could do with the younger kids to keep them engaged. And we know that with the younger ones, you have to, of course, there's got to be someone home to monitor what's happening and how they're learning. But unfortunately, in this great old wonderful world, everybody's got to go to work. And some of those parents are going to have to go to work that were allowed time off initially. So panel, what are some suggestions, some strategies that you would recommend for these homes where the parents are going to have to leave this go round in trying to get these kids still get their lessons? How are they going to get their lessons still if the parents have to go to work and I don't know, maybe they have older siblings or maybe they don't? What's some suggestions that maybe you all know of that could be offered to the parents, to our listening audience?
I know for pre-K, we are required to record. We have to do 2 live lessons. So we have to and we have to do it daily. So we have to offer one in the morning and one in the afternoon, and we have to record both lessons. And it has to be the same thing has to be taught in both lessons. So if I offer it, say at 9 o'clock in the morning, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it has to be taught the same thing and it has to be recorded. So it'll be posted on Canvas. So if a parent can't make either one of those, they can go back and watch that lesson that's being taught, as well as whatever in additional lessons that are posted up there. And with pre-K, we have to post basically the 6.5 day. So which that doesn't necessarily mean that is stuff that they have to do for the whole day, because with them being in school, that includes them eating breakfast, taking a nap, going outside, eating lunch. So that included, those are times that they don't necessarily have to do anything with them. That could be something that, they do throughout the day. Right. So, but there's read aloud time, there's small group, which are things that I can record and they can go back and watch, or whatever activity that I can do that doesn't necessarily have to mean it's done during the time that they're at work. It's something that they can do later on in the evening. Awesome. So with my parents, I can let them know that it doesn't have to be done during a set time as long as it's done during the day. And we're not, pre-K isn't graded, it's more of has it been done thing. So if it's under
Okay.
assignment, it's more of, did you complete the assignment? I just need
Gotcha.
to know that you did it. And then for pre-K, we have to do 2 weekly check-ins. So I have to actually communicate with my parents, every family member, twice a week. So I have to physically talk to you or do a conference with every family. So if I have 15 families, I have to talk to them twice a week, whether it's through the phone or just to say, hey, how are things going? Is there anything you need help with? And this could be a 5-minute conversation. So
Okay.
it's a set time each week that I have to, when I meet with them virtually and say, hey, I have to meet with you twice a week. And this is by law. Like, I have to document that I met with them twice a week. So it's a set time that I meet with my parents and say, hey, every week I'm going to call you at this time to check in. So what time works with you? And so I'm checking, hey, this is your weekly check-in. How are things going? Do you need help? You having any problems with anything? Do you need assistance with anything? If not, okay, I'll check with you later on in the week. That's it. So it's not something where I have to be a long minute, but for pre-K, that's what we have to do, as well as the live lessons twice a week. So
Okay. Angela, what would be some suggestions for our students with IEPs or, learning? They're having trouble with some of our EC kids. What are some strategies you could offer to our parents that may or may not be at home with that child as well? Unmute.
Okay, thank you. I think in just being honest and transparent, I think it can be a challenge. I know specifically the Pittsburgh School District, they sent out a survey to parents inquiring, about the concerns around childcare in this time because it is difficult. I know that there are some parents who are reaching out for those who are reaching out to their village and their friends and family to try to kind of put their heads together to kind of come up with maybe some options. There are parents who are able to work from home, so they will be home virtually with their students. But we are in it's a pandemic, right? So
Right.
we are in a situation where it is a challenge for families trying to figure out, okay, how is this going to work now that the school district is going to be online virtually? I still have to go to work. Some of our students, they do have older siblings, and that can definitely be support. The recommendation that I would give is just really reach out to your school and your school district and communicate your concerns and your needs, as well as seeing what options and resources are available
Okay.
for you as a parent and specifically for your child. Students with special needs, they have specially designed instruction. So there are some things that absolutely can happen via virtual, and there's some things that cannot. A student who might say, for instance, if a student has small group testing, of course that really wouldn't be relevant because they're home and they're by
Right.
themselves, so they don't need to be separated from a larger group or a larger class because the online is virtual. But there might be resources available virtually that might be a little bit helpful, a little bit more supportive for those particular students to meet their need, the resources that might be available, the tutorials that might be available. But I would definitely encourage, the parents to reach out to the schools and talk to your special education teachers and just see what is available for your student and how they could further assist you right now in this time, because we're all trying to figure this out. This is something that it's a situation that we're trying to make the best of.
Absolutely.
So it's definitely going to be a challenge, and it's not, you know, honestly, online learning might not be ideal for all students, but it's what we have been presented with, and we just gotta kind of brainstorm to figure out what can we do to be supportive and help our students through this time.
Good job. Good job. Guys, what do you, we're all at the point knowing that we are in remote learning. How can we as educators try and make sure that we are having equitable instruction for all? Or what is your district doing to try and make sure that all students are getting what they need or have what they need to the best of their abilities? Anybody want to chime in first, or?
I'll chime in. I was going to say, I know for our district, a lot of schools are distributing technologies such as laptops and tablets, books, etc. And that's one thing that's being done at the district level. But then you get a laptop and then you go into a home with no Wi-Fi.
All right.
So I think it's really kind of just grace, giving our kids and our parents grace. Like Angela said, understanding that we are in a pandemic, communicating, asking parents what they actually need, reaching out to students who you might see that that does not have an online presence, has not been engaged or submitting assignments, etc. Not just, writing a kid off and saying, oh, well, but contacting those families and figuring out what's going on, what can I do to help, and just keeping that line of communication open so that they know they can talk to you. This was due on Friday. I really can't do it. And not being so strenuous with due dates and you have to have this and you have to do it this way, but giving the options. Maybe they can't, submit it online, but if you can write it out and take a picture and text it to me.
Right.
Just different options to offer our kids for their many situations that are out there, and realizing always, first and foremost, we are in a pandemic. All right. So that social, emotional well-being and mental health comes first. And that's something that I was actually challenged with in the spring semester when we went virtual with my own children. Every single thing does not, even though we have all the resources that they needed to complete their assignments, but every single thing does not have to be done and completed on time if that means you're going to be stressed out and you're going to be emotional and it's taking a toll on your mental, and realizing what's really important in this time as educators. So our students' lives and well-being are more important than checking off they turned in this assignment.
Right. Absolutely. Angela?
Yes, I'm actually participating with the district this week in a summer leadership academy, and even today we addressed some things around working on our systems, right, and taking a current look at what our systems look like and what we need to do to improve the work around our systems. One of the things that we specifically addressed with our team and our reflection today is simply the communication, right? What does our communication look like right now in this time with our parents? Is it effective? If it's not, what can we do to improve that communication so that we can make sure that all the parents and families are receiving the information that they need to receive? Make sure that we're clear about the opportunities that are available and the resources that are available for our family, and just making sure that we are really evaluating and reflecting on those systems to see where there might be some areas of improvement, because that's really important as well. Taking a look at how things are working within, our building and in our schools, and how are we communicating the opportunities that are available, and making sure that all students have access to that information. And picking up the phone, because we definitely know that a lot of we are in 2020, and we have been much more techie than previously, but there's still a lot of people who don't check their email, right? But it's important that we're making sure that we're reaching out to parents and say, hey, we just want to make sure, we need to check in to see, do you have everything that you need?
Absolutely.
Do you have access to the technology and the Wi-Fi? And is your child able to log in and make sure that they're able to access what they need? And just making sure, again, that our systems are working the way that they should, to make sure we are reaching our students so that they can be successful.
Absolutely. We have another question panel that has just came in. It says, how are the school systems dealing with students that don't have internet or computers at home? Well, part of that's been shared, that our district, I know, have if I remember right, 30,000 more computers that they have purchased or in the process of getting to distribute throughout the district to the various schools that need them. Now, they had hotspots around the city on school buses that the kids could connect to at one point. Somebody else can chime in. I'm not sure if those hotspots are going to remain in the fall or not. But that's just some information that I didn't know in reference to having internet access as well as having computers. Anybody else on GCS or Pittsburgh, what are they doing up there for kids that may not have internet or tablets?
For Pittsburgh, there has been discussion around the availability of hotspots. Of course, I know that, and this is my opinion, right? It would be ideal if there were things done in our communities, right, where you can access a local community network, so to speak. But I do believe at one point, I'm not sure what's going on with it now, but I do believe some of the internet providers previously was offering the internet to maybe a low cost or at a discount. I'm not sure, or even free for a while. I'm not sure if that's still, it has been an option, but I know the district did have discussions around having some hotspots and tackling how they are going to make sure that our students have access to the internet.
Right.
Well, I wanted to add to that. Actually, I did interview a principal in Delaware. She mentioned that they were actually going to some of the homes of students who didn't have access and giving them packets. I think she referred to them as so they could have their own hotspots. Now, at Penn State, every student has an iPad that they were given as freshmen. So they should be able to give that. One of the things I think that we've run into, though, is students at home may not have a certain, they may have people sharing a computer, or they may not have the access during the day, or may not even have the ability to focus, because if they're older, I'm dealing with 18, 19-year-olds, so if they're older, some of them have to babysit, right? And they talked about how really college is where I come to really have my peace and be able to focus on my lessons. So one of the things I've learned I've had to do is be patient. Right, this is a two-way street. I'm trying to be patient with them and give them extended time. They're patient with me because I don't know everything about Zoom. I'm adjusting as well. And to be honest, some of the students have really helped me adjust to this technological age. And I also think that at the end of the day, we're going to have to be resourceful. As my sister said, we're in a pandemic, right? So I had a student who typed this final 2-page essay on his phone. Right, he typed it on the phone. So at the end of the day, he wanted to get that grade in that class, and he was resourceful. So I think as educators, we have to be creative, And also I would encourage my colleagues, you all, to make sure we check on our older students too, because when the young lady wrote me, she was one of my best students, and when her grades started to slide and she talked about, I just can't focus when I'm at home because there's so much going on. So, you know, let's make sure we watch the little ones, but also the older ones as well.
I definitely agree with you on that. I had a student last year. She was one of 3 other siblings, and they were all middle school to high school age bracket. So they were self-sufficient in getting on the technology and following through, but they were sharing one computer. So when I'm emailing her and texting her, like, where's your work? What's going on? And she's like, well, I'm waiting on my brother to get off the computer. I said, oh, okay. Well, that's some more information that I didn't know about. So now that I know that, I said, so when do you think you're going to be on? So we had to have that dialogue. I had to hear, and she felt comfortable enough with me to share what was going on. And we were later able to get her own computer, so that's one less sibling having to share a computer. But you never know what's going on totally in the households, what's available, what's not available. And like everyone has said, it's a pandemic. You have got to be flexible. I noticed that my time shifted from meeting with kids early in the morning to them starting to text and call and email 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. I said, okay, so we're on the night shift, which is fine by me because anybody that knows me, I'm a night owl. But in that, I just shifted my day. So I coach my teachers during the day and work with my kids at night. It's about making it happen to make sure that our kids are successful.
And I think
ahead,
that's
Angela.
I think that's definitely important. Having that compassion, but also being, you know, culturally sensitive, just in general. As it was brought up, you don't know what's going on. I had a couple students at the end of the school year this past spring there was in a single parent household. The mom got laid off from work, but the son was still able to work. So, you know, he's of age. He was a senior. He was 18 years old, right? But he had to continue to work his job, and he was actually able to pick up a couple more hours because of his age. But because his mom was laid off, he then kind of had to you know, take on that extra responsibility.
Right.
But he still was making an effort to do his work and get his work done. And you have to make those decisions, you know, as an educator, like, okay, yes, I am going to be more flexible. Yes, I am going to give him extended time, because right now we are in a pandemic and it is frustrating and people are struggling. And this young man, you know, we want to encourage him and support him because he still wants to continue his education,
Right.
as opposed to him being of age, right? And he could have easily said, well, you know, I'm 18. I technically am old enough to just drop out right now and just handle, you know, my business with my family. But he still wanted to continue his education. So it was something we had to figure out. We had to be flexible with, and we had to be sensitive, and that humanity in us. You know, we have to tap into that. I think sometimes, you know, through our learning and through our education, we learn about all our policies and our standards, and we can still keep those standards, but we have to remember that it's important that we're flexible, right? And we definitely tap into our humanity, because we're there to be supportive as much as possible.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I had drifted out. I had a question come in from Facebook. It says, aside from prayer, as educators, that is the way. How will you keep your sales parents, colleagues, and family members encouraged during these times?
That's a good question.
You on speaker. It's on you, Angela. You got it first. Yes, you all first, and we'll let them dive in.
Okay. So of course, prayer definitely is essential. We know that, but I'll just be honest. Sometimes you have to encourage yourself.
Absolutely.
You have to encourage yourself. And that's something that I've definitely been doing a little more of. Mindfulness is definitely very important. As a teacher and educator, I'm also creative, right? So I'm all over the place because I make stuff, right?
Okay.
And so it is very difficult for me to focus when it comes to certain things because I got so much going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I have learned that it is this time, right? This time I've had the opportunity to learn that I do have to focus. I have to tap into self-care.
Okay.
That is so definitely very important, and encourage others to also tap into that self-care, because it really is important. Something that I started with my students, something that I started with myself that I will continue to do is just some positive affirmations.
Yes.
And meditations. I started those with my older students. At first, I knew they would be like, "Miss Stubbs, this is corny, like for real," and they were in the beginning. They were like, "For real, Miss Stubbs, like you tried to create like a cool meme, but there's really an affirmation on it. Like this isn't funny, Miss Stubbs. Like you're trying to make us get into these things by creating these memes. What we would like, but it's just really important to just really focus on encouraging yourself. Those affirmations, lend yourself some grace, right? Again, we are in a time that is unprecedented. Sometimes we look and we're not sure what's going to happen, but just making sure that you have that self-reflection. And when you find yourself in those moments where you're feeling a little bit discouraged, encourage yourself and maybe reach out to somebody who's going to encourage you. I keep a squad of my sisters, who help with that. I know who I can reach out to when I know that I'm feeling a little discouraged or frustrated and overwhelmed. So definitely, using your resources and the people around you, your village, is important.
Absolutely. LaShia, Jonathan, what do you do?
Yeah. Well, Sister Angela, I love that. Lend yourself some grace. Like that really spoke to me. But I think it's so many things. For one, we need to check on each other, right? Care for yourself, but reach out to others. For me, I've also been releasing that creative energy as an artist. I said, if somebody send me another video on social media of something that's just, apocalyptic, like I said, I just couldn't take it anymore. I remember just saying to myself, I have to do something that that kind of counters so much of the anxiety and fear, that we see, and we just feed off this daily. And I think that one of the things I tried to do for my students was I started creating these podcasts in which I just started interviewing. Since most of my friends were at home anyway, I said, I'm going to take these positive African Americans and we're going to, try to have these interesting topics and just talk and continue to put that, that strong energy in the universe. And finally, for me as a historian, y'all, I draw so much of my strength from understanding what Black people have come through. I was reading this book this summer called The Slave Ship, about this ship called the Hudibras, and it was these young ladies from this tribe, and what they would do is they would have a female storyteller or singer in the center, and then they would all circle around her, but the young girls would start in the inner circle, and it would work its way out until you got to the perimeter with the elderly women. And these women were literally being taken from their homeland and being taken to, whether the Caribbean or America, and they were connecting with their culture and still finding a way in the midst of that, right, to celebrate each other. So for me, when I start wanting to feel sorry for myself, I draw on the strength of the ancestors and John Lewis, rest in peace, somebody who fought so that we have to live. You know, so I think for so long in this pandemic, I was like, let me just get through. Let's just get through. Let's get it over with. But then I just decided one day, like, we're gonna be in this for a minute, right?
That's right.
We're gonna have to adapt, evolve.
Yes, evolve. Absolutely. Next, Natalia.
I would just say take breaks, and move. I know for me, something that is fun and encouraging is dancing. Me and my girls will put on like a YouTube Just Dance, and they have the routine, and we'll dance. Going outside in between breaks and walking around the neighborhood. Just any opportunity that you get to go outside and get some fresh air, take a walk, move your body, and just take it all in, really will be a good, break from the work day. Whatever you have to do, just make sure you take breaks. It's not all hustle and bustle. It's not always work. And we all need breaks, and it's okay to take a break. This whole idea that we have in our culture now, I'll rest when I die, or whatever, whatever that nonsense is nonsense. You need to rest now, okay? You need to take breaks. You need to, move your body and release some of those good chemicals, and that really helps with your mental, and it keeps you grounded and sane.
Right. LaShaya?
For me, I like to read. So I'll get a good book or something, and I'll just, read. Also, like for me, because with me working with the young kids, it's a possibility that there's a push for them to be in the classroom. So it's a possibility that I could be back in. So for me, I always anoint my classroom. So just praying over my classroom and, praying in general. But when I go back in, I anoint my classroom, anoint my doors, anoint the chairs and everything. So that's something I always do before. So if my kids come in, the funny thing is if they take a nap. So my nap time music is actually hymns without the words. So they don't know that that's what I'm playing, but because I'm like, y'all gonna get some God, regardless whether y'all know or not. But and it's funny because one of my little boys was just humming it, and I was like, oh Lord, but I knew his mom, so it was so funny. He just started humming the song. But it's little things like that. Like I have to get a piece, because you never, with young ones, it's a lot that they go through, and so. And the thing with me working with little kids is you have to show love. They're going to want hugs. They're going to want to sit in your lap. They need that one-on-one. So it's hard to say, hey, you can't come this close, So for me, that's an adjustment for me that I'm going to have to, work on if we go to in person, because I'm so used to, hey, picking up a child if they're sad, or, come sit, so I have to make that adjustment if we go to in person. So a lot of those things I'm like, oh, can't do that. Hey, what we gonna do now? So, it's a lot of things with that. So, but a lot of the things that you said, taking those breaks, I'm one that I don't take a lot of time off. So I'm going to, if I need to take a mental day, I'm going to take that mental, having that person to call and just say, hey, I need you to encourage me, or, hey, I just need a word, that kind of thing, having those people in your lives that you can talk to and just kind of, vent to, or just go back and forth, how things going, this is what's going on. What do you think? Those different things, little things like that. So it's just different things, what works for you may not work for the next person. So
absolutely.
Just different things like that.
Thank you, LaShaya. Yvette.
So basically, I do a lot of what everyone has shared. I had to learn to actually set a timer for like every 20 minutes. So I'd actually like get up out of the chair and just stretch and just walk around with supporting teachers as Kim knows, everyone's on a different schedule, and you may be meeting with small groups of teachers or individual teachers, and there's only so many hours in a day in between the fact that you want to eat lunch or, you know, to kind of take a break. And at the same time, I was also being mommy teacher. So it was, you know, a lot of hustle and bustle. So once I got my schedule together, like I write a daily schedule for the night before. Right. So I knew exactly like when I was taking those breaks and say, okay, close the computer. All right, it's my son's time, or it's lunchtime, or to go out and get the mail. To go out and get the mail was like my schedule. So I'm like, let me just get some vitamin D just to walk outside, go to the mailbox,
absolutely,
take my time, come back inside. That was like my little woosah type thing.
That's right.
Because being cooped up in the house for me started to weigh. So I would then say, okay, every day I'm going outside. Now, I may not have had time to really take a walk until after work, but I'm like, okay, I got to go outside. If I go stand out on my deck, back, and just breathe.
Right.
Or like I said, it was daily. I can go get my mail and come back in and be like, okay, I've been outside. All right, now I can get back on track. But I definitely had to do a schedule for myself. So I literally scheduled those moments, those times, so that I just wouldn't be like a workhorse and just keep going. You know, it was, you know, it took a couple of weeks.
Absolutely.
To get mind, but that was what I needed to do in order to just have those moments, those self-care, just that intermittent in between the workday. So those things you have to take into consideration. Like even now I'm thinking about when we start, what's my schedule going to be so that I can make sure that I am taking those mental breaks and I am having that time so that I'm being productive.
Absolutely.
You know, throughout the day.
I agree with Yvette. I had to get myself on the schedule as well. It was crazy at first. I felt like I said, I'm working more now than I did when we was in school. However, once I kind of got in a rhythm, set that schedule, went to the mailbox, took that walk to the mailbox, come back in and do some more work, and then walk down the street to the stop sign and come back just to get out and move and breathe, something other than a laptop and talking all day. But I totally get it. You have to have those moments, those creative moments. I'm a creative person. Everybody knows me. And so I found that I didn't have anything to create for a minute of time. And I was like, why do I feel like I feel? And I was like, you haven't done anything of what you enjoy lately. Not that I'm saying work is not what I enjoy, but my other parts that I enjoy. But yeah, so when I realized that, and I was like, okay, so I got me some arts and crafts going on and started doing a little choreography and stuff. I was like, okay, woosah, now I'm back. I feel Kim coming back. But this has been awesome. Jonathan, the audience wants to know the name of that book again. So if you could tell us that again, that you were referring to, and the author, if you know it.
The name of the book is called The Slave Ship, A Human History. The author is one of my professors at Pitt, Dr. Marcus Rediker. It's called The Slave Ship, A Human History.
The Slave Ship of Human History. And the author one more time.
The author is Dr. Marcus Rediker, Rediker.
Thank you so much. Can we find that on Amazon? Or do we need to come to you?
Oh, no, I'm sure you can. I got it off Apple Books, but yeah, it
okay.
should be on Amazon. Mm-hmm.
Cool beans. Well, guys, we've had a phenomenal night. Hopefully encouraging and sharing from our platform as educators, this virtual world. We know that we don't have to be everything to all people. We just got to do what God has told us to do and do it to the best of our abilities. And I feel great that now I have another group of people that I can say, hey, Angela, I need a break. Give me something to do. And she can say, Kim, try this. But it has been phenomenal with you guys tonight. And We have thoroughly enjoyed you. The audience has thoroughly enjoyed you. We appreciate you on behalf of Bishop Washington and the Powerhouse Deliverance Churches. We thank you all for your time. We thank you for everything that you're doing for our kids, our young adults, our adults in education. Continue to be great. Have a phenomenal school year. And we'll see what happens next. If this will be a part B, when we see if we ever get back to the classroom. Love you all and be blessed.